one of the new and kind of liberal arts related program, Public Policy and Management Education at Dalit University School of Management, and associate professor and also program director. And in this moment, and I would like to take one opportunity to invite you all, because we have a one specialization, that is social justice, and all of us directly or indirectly very well engaged in Nepal's social justice issue, and that's why it is a very right time. And soon we are going to form the one specialized in social justice, and this is a very one important milestone that we are going to achieve it, because social diversity and inclusion and justice issue is very much undermined in Nepal in the name of prosperity, and that's why I'd like to welcome you all at my center and program as well. And I'm very much interested just to share my quick thoughts on Dalit University, or university focusing on the minority group. And I have two evidences quickly sharing. Historically, black college that is very much prominent and contributing a lot in the United States, empowering and serving the African American people. And Brandeis School itself, it is a kind of very well-known academic institutions promoted by religious minority Jewish group. And I think these two evidences and good practices and exemplary contributions in a field of the minority educations through the academia. And later on we will discuss that I have a little bit experience, and Uttam Gaulee is also the right person to share on this issue. I think these two aspects directly contribute to our efforts or endeavors that we are
Can you give me that device?
Okay, okay, thank you so much. Momji, I finished. I finished. Uh, Uttamji, hello.
Yes, sir.
Uh, are you able to hear me? Or
Yes.
again, Momji is out of connections. I think so.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Mm.
He has unstable Wi-Fi, I believe. Hopefully he'll get back. I think he's between the devices.
Maybe.
Well, I think Momji has just dropped out altogether.
Now I think
he'll be back.
Come back.
Oh, he's back now. Yes.
I'm really sorry. I think I'll change my device, because in this computer my internet is not stable. So I'm going to change. Please continue.
Okay, Steve, this is your turn.
Yes. Okay. So I'm Steve Folmer, and I am an anthropologist who works at Wake Forest University. I started my academic career by studying for or researching for my dissertation in Koski District, and I started that in 1979. So it's been a long time, 41 years now. And I have made now many trips back to Nepal. In 2001, I really turned my my interests specifically toward Dalit people. I had a more general interest in what I viewed as the caste system up until that point, and did not really appreciate until the late 1990s how the people within the caste system really don't represent small variations on one group, but are really very different groups of people. And so since 2001, I have focused almost exclusively on Dalit people and Dalit issues. And of course, anytime a researcher starts to focus on the everyday lives of Dalit people, I think that anybody with a heart has to become an advocate because of the huge challenges that Dalit people face daily. It was probably not until about 2 or 3 years ago that I got deeply involved in Dalit issues from an organizational level. I've been with ICDR for a long time, but I thought of that more or less as kind of a secondary concern because I wanted to work on the daily lives of Dalit people. And but more recently, I don't want to forget working there, but I realized that in order for me to have more of an impact, I need to broaden my scope. And so I've been invited by people like Momji to participate in these kinds of events, and I'm very thrilled to do so. And I'm really looking forward to a discussion of creating a college for Dalit people in Nepal. And I believe 1 or 2 people have already said that it appears that the time is right, and I have to agree with that. I suppose that Uttam ji also sees a lot of parallels between what is happening in the United States and what is happening in Nepal right now. And 2 vastly different countries, very similar social processes are going on. And so maybe we can draw on the on each other, on the 2 different experiences to try to make or to help positive change occur in Nepal.
Yeah.
Well said, Sati.
So we have Bidhyanath also.
Yeah. Welcome, Bidhyanath, sir. We have just started. Can you hear us? Namaste.
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 We cannot hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. So we're just introducing each other. Now we are only we were 4 people, but now, including you, we are only 5 people. Yeah, we have Miss Dona Rasali. He's not able to make today, but from second meeting onward, he'll join us. Yeah.
Okay, I also go. You must be able to hear you now.
Okay. I think it's my turn for introduction.
I believe so.
Okay. I guess all of you, you know me. I'm Mom Bishwakarma from western part of Nepal. And I did college study in Kathmandu. Actually, I did masters from Purna University, and later I moved to Sydney for PhD in 2013, and I had completed PhD from Sydney University in sociology and social policy in 2018. Since then, I'm part-time researcher in the University of Sydney, and I've been teaching in different universities in part-time basis. So recently, I'm teaching in Australian College for Applied Psychology. Before that, I used to teach in University of Tasmania and Sydney University as well. Last year, I published 1 book from Routledge, UK. It is based on my PhD research. The title is Political Transformation in Nepal, Dalit Inequality and Justice. This is the title for my book. So I have just started my career in this sector. That's all my introduction. And I'm writing few journal articles and opinions in different papers as well. Yeah, that's all. Thank you so much. Maybe Bidya sir, we know you, but I don't know whether you are introduced with Mr. Folmer before.
Well, this is me, Bidhyanath Koirala, working in the field of education and now retired. Used to be a professor, now a professor that time in the field of education, and especially work with the marginalized community, including that of Dalits. This is my information.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So we don't have a specific agenda today. As I said before, this meeting is just to conceptualize whether there is potentiality or possibility of Dalit college or university in Nepal or not. So let's brainstorm or explore the idea. If it is possible, then what are the process? Can we start? Yeah, if not, then what could we do alternatively? But as some of us said before, like Steve Folmer is very excited to join us and contribute for Dalit College in Nepal, and Uttam Gaulee and Purna Nepali, all of us, we are very excited, but we are not clear how can we go ahead. In this context, I think we need to explore our idea and then move ahead. So, Purnaji, what do you think? How can we start today's discussion?
Okay, should I introduce something?
Okay.
And actually, when last time it was one of the objectives that I have suggested the Momji and Dr. Rona as well, and how can we ensure the social equity and justice in higher education. And I have a few experience and exposures. Uh, and very honestly speaking, there are the very few people who are really uh, interested to do something in the field of the equity or diversity in higher education. It is very much, people are very much racist and very much reluctant in every spheres, and it's very difficult to determine. And for those aspects, it would be very important to institutionalize the things so that the people will be bound to ensure the equity or diversity or justice in the higher education. Even during my entire academic journey, and I have faced various problems. And actually, though I am ignoring and I am not taking care of those issues very much seriously, if I will take those issues very seriously, in the sense that I do not want to take that too much, and sometimes I'm ignoring. If I'll be very emotional and sentimental, and that will harm my whole journey or whole my different kind of journey and process during my entire life. That's why I'm ignoring. And in those contexts, what I'm realizing is that there should be some sort of the very mechanisms or institutional procedures, and so that will ensure the equity and justice to the mass marginalized community. That's why few evidences I have, and that is historically black college and university that was established during the tenure of the very towering political figures Abraham Lincoln. Previously, he was not uh, sensitized on those issues, and there are the several interventions made by the very good philosopher and African American scholar Booker T. Washington, and actually he was able to influence the Abraham Lincoln, and that's why through the introductions of the Second Amendment of the Morrill Act and Morrill Act, it is a very instrumental to introduce the land grant institution. And actually land grant institutions, it served the whole American peoples and beyond the academia. But because of a lot of separatist movement that happened in the United States, and African American peoples or a lot of segregation issues, they were not solved. And because of the very strong influence of the Booker Washington, he is the African American people, African American scholars, and he was able to introduce the African American related colleges like a historically black college and university, and that was very instrumental even to educate the very towering personality like Martin Luther King and W.B. Boyce. And actually, after being graduated from the historically black college, and those two African American scholars got admission. One got admissions at Harvard University, and another got admission at Boston University. And through the very educational process of the empowering those different scholars, and even those scholars got recognitions at the the global levels. And if you look at some sort of the biography of the Bhimrao Ambedkar, and actually he got some scholarship at Oxford University and Columbia Universities. And they are one of the very important slogan is educate, educate, and educate. It means through the formal way of empowering through the formal academic institutions, it matters a lot rather than only empowering from the other way. That's why I have some kind of the impressions, and how can we replicate that sort of the practices in our case as well. And also the Brandeis University that is located at Massachusetts, and actually it has a kind of the some religious root, and those Jewish religious minority peoples, they are very economically well off, but by religious perspective they are in minority, and also they faced a lot of discriminations, and because of the very very judicious and very that sort of the interventions, they established the universities, Brandeis universities, and that is very much similar to like a historically black college, and but that slightly differs, and that's why that has also contributed a lot in empowering the Jewish community. And actually they have provided a lot of academic environment, and people are empowered. A lot of faculty got that sort of the opportunities. In 2017, one of the faculty from the Jewish community, so far I understand, he got the Nobel Prize. And that university and school is one of the very highly reputed in United States as well. In World Bank website, that universities got the good recognition, one of the top 10 schools. It means we have a lot of opportunities to contribute in a field of diversity and inclusion. Even topmost university like Boston University, Harvard University, Yale University, there is some formal department of African American, department of racial studies, and that sort of the provisions and that sort of the very institutionalized efforts are there even in a developed country, and that is very much needed in our context as well. And how can we replicate that sort of the very exemplary initiatives that is happening in developed country, and how can we replicate that sort of things in our context so that mass marginalized communities, youth, or the communities will be benefited for that sort of practices. And Professor Bidhyanath Koirala, Dr. Man, Steve Folmer, actually they have a lot of very insightful learnings that I have been noticing since last 10-15 years, and we can share our experiences, what we have in our mind, then we can move ahead, and how can we proceed further in our country. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Purnaji. Welcome, Dr. Man Bk. He has recently joined us. Man, sir.
Yeah, sorry for the late joining to this meeting. I was in the other meeting, so I think I lost some part of this meeting. However, I will be updated on. Please go ahead, and namaste to all.
Thank you. We have just finished introduction. So would you be able to introduce yourself?
Yeah, once again, namaste to all. It is my pleasure to be in this meeting, very important meeting. I'm Dr. Man Bk, working with the government of Nepal as a joint secretary. My ministry is Ministry for Youth and Sports. And before that, I worked in several government organizations. I did postdoc from Brandeis University that Dr. Purna was explaining right now, and on food security. And before that, I did my PhD on microfinance, which is very much related with micro enterprises as well, which is also related with the skill, traditional skill of Dalit community and other indigenous people. And yeah, I am from western part of Nepal, Palpa district. Most of the people I know. Yeah, that's all for now.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So let's hear from Associate Professor Uttam Gaulee about his idea and yeah, let's see, basically idea on opening Dalit College in Nepal, whether it is possible or not. If so, then how can we move ahead?
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Bishwakarma. Greetings, Joint Secretary Dr. BK, social educational leader and stalwart Dr. Koirala. You have always been at the forefront of educational reform in Nepal. It's an honor to join the screen with you and with other scholar friends, Dr. Nepali, Dr. Folmer, and Dr. Bishwakarma. Thank you so much for your leadership. This is a historic day in North America. It is Canada is celebrating its Independence Day today. And in the United States, I just learned that this was the day when a big tide of civic movement began 157 years ago. And I happened to be working at a historically Black university called Morgan State University, which was founded in 1867. It's a doctoral research institution offering more than 126 academic programs leading to degrees from the baccalaureate to the doctorate. The state of Maryland has designated this university as preeminent public urban research university. And the mission of this university is to ensure that the doors of higher education are open as widely as possible to as many as possible. That is the motto that we champion. As Dr. Nepali already laid out how historically Black universities and colleges opened in the United States in the midst of segregation. Even after 100 years of emancipation, people were still segregated. So there was a need for the development of HBCUs. The first HBCU was established in 1837 in Pennsylvania. Most of the very first HBCUs were private in nature, but the public ones, as Dr. Nepali said, came after the promulgation of Morrill Act. Morrill Act helped open land-grant universities, but even after several land-grant universities were established after the first Morrill Act of 1862, most states, about 17 states in the South, required their systems to be segregated and generally excluded Black students from their land-grant universities. So in response, Congress passed a second Morrill Act of 1890, also known as the Agricultural College Act of 1890, that required states to establish a separate land-grant college for Blacks, specifically for Blacks. So that's how these things began. Interestingly, at that time, scholars also believed in racial inferiority. University scholars of the time argued that racial inferiority of people of American descent justified their enslavement, and that enslavement would bring Blacks closer to the Christian salvation. So people used politics, religion, and socioeconomic conditions to justify what they were doing. Even faculty and students also argued for the centrality of slavery to the nation's economic success. Coursework in history, religion, and other subjects supported the moral and political correctness of slavery. Graduates took up positions among the slaveholding elite as plantation owners and politicians. Others became ministers or educators who upheld slavery through preaching and teaching. So that was in the system. And later on, some quota systems were used when some Blacks were allowed, but the quota systems were introduced to ensure that only limited number of Blacks got admission in the established universities. So as the time passed, there were some court cases and funding threats that forced desegregation. So civil rights movement, one of the court cases that is very famous in the United States is the Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. The state schools established for whites maintained racially exclusionary practices toward Blacks until forced to integrate by the Supreme Court ruling of Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. Followed by that court decision, pressure from national professional organizations also threatened to withhold accreditation, as well as from the federal government and foundations who threatened to withhold grant funding from segregated institutions, forced most private institutions to desegregate in the early 1960s. However, it was not until 1970s that desegregation for non-whites and quotas for non-Christian students in universities were completely abolished. So significant progress on campuses. To this point, vast majority of higher education institutions recognize that serving a diverse campus community is of intrinsic value to the educational enterprise and to the nation at large. As a result, many schools are struggling to align their campuses with these changes by renaming buildings and limiting racist behavior. After the death of George Floyd last month, this nation is still reeling under a big momentum of protest. So at this point, it looks like we are at another inflection point. And as Professor Folmer mentioned earlier, the United States and Nepal share the process of change, even though we are on the two different sides of the globe. So it looks like this is the right time for us to strike, because our Dalit communities have been relegated, oppressed, and segregated, but their talents, their skills have not been mainstreamed in the national economy. So I think this is the right time on this historic day that we commit to start a Dalit University, which will create a free and seamless learning environment for the oppressed community. And that will be a win-win for the society, and it will be a great step towards civil rights movement. It will be a beautiful thing in our history. Thank you, Dr. Bishwakarma.
Thank you, Professor Uttam Gaulee-ji, for your important remarks on this very historic, let's say, event for us. Let's hear from Steve, Professor Steve.
So let me begin by saying that in many ways, this topic is completely foreign to me. That is, the idea of creating a university is something that I have never thought about in any serious way. And so I think that we would have to think through a lot of the technical processes that would be involved. But following up on Professor Uttam's comments, I would like to point out that that in the United States, the institution and success of traditionally Black colleges and universities depended to some degree on creating ties with the powers that were not Black. So in order for the development of HBCUs to occur, it took a white community that was to some degree receptive of the idea. Not all whites, but certain powerful white folks. And I've believed for quite some time that the Dalit movement in Nepal, and I think that the creation of a university would be very much a part of that, would also need to have its allies who were not Dalit. So in order for this to be successful, partially because the resources to do such a thing really don't exist in the Dalit community, as far as I know. There may be a few very wealthy, very powerful people who wanted to help us start this idea. But again, going back to Professor Uttam's comment about creating a win-win situation, I think this is very much necessary for the success, especially the early success of something like a Dalit college. So the win that Dalit people would get from it is obvious. Yeah, there would be a place for Dalits to go to university, a place for some Dalits to teach in the university. The university would have its wider effects on society, on learning things, but we have to identify what the win would be for the people, for some of the people who would see this as a loss. So unfortunately, there are people who still view the benefits of society as existing in a zero-sum game. That is, if one group gains, then another group loses. And so I think we have to find some allies in the, in the Bound Chetri community, in the Newar community, and in the international community that would see that we could make aware of what the Dalit contribution would be through the university that would benefit society in general. I think if we include that as part of what we are attempting to do here, that we have a much better chance of gaining some allies outside of the Dalit sphere. I think that's the only real comment I have at this point.
Thank you, Professor Steve, for your important remarks. Of course, there are so many things to consider if we move ahead in terms of opening some form of Dalit college in Nepal. There are so many technicalities and resource constraints and legal constraints as well, which of course Professor Bidhyanath Koirala will bring to our attention as well, because he has already given us so many things to consider. Now, I'd like to ask Dr. Man Bk-Nepal to give your idea or remarks.
Okay, thank you very much, especially to Mom Ji for organizing this very important meeting in a different subject. When we talk about Dalit movement, then we talk about social aspect of Dalit community, but this is a very specific and very high level, sometimes it seems ambitious as well, issue. So it is very important even to think this issue, and with these dignitaries, participant from various universities and even from Nepal. I think the background and the international practices, international scenario, Dr. Purna Nepali, Folmer, and Gaulee-ji, they said that idea. But I would like to share the practicalities of this thing in our domestic context or national context. It is because my research, PhD research, is very much linked with this issue, and through that, I find that about 42% of Dalit people, they depend on the traditional skill, their traditional skill. Still now, I think due to the globalization, there might have been some displaced this skill for the livelihood, but they have the ideas, they have the knowledge, traditional, inherited traditional skill, knowledge of that skill, but even though they have that skill, knowledge, but they are deprived. It is because due to the globalization, neoliberalism, and domestic circumstances, they have been deprived due to, not getting this commercialization, not getting this advancement in their skill, knowledge, and not protecting those skills from the state as well. So they have been deprived. So this skill, traditional skill of Dalits, it is not only related with Dalit community only. It is, I think, the assets of the nation. These are the assets of the nation, and nation has to recognize these skills, and it is the state's responsibility that it has to be preserved. For that, I think one thing we are losing is that we need to take the patent right of these skills so that it can be preserved. Whenever I get the platform, I raise the issue of patent right, getting the patent right of these skills. Not only these skills, also the product of Nepalese commodities, skill, knowledge. That would be one very important aspect to preserve, and very basic thing to commercialize these things for their livelihood. For that as well, we need some sort of this type of institutions. During my research, I found that about 1.4 million rupees, Nepali rupees per year has been taken by Bangladeshi people from the jewelry business only. 1.4 million per year rupees. That has been taken by Bangladeshi people from the jewelry workshop. That's a very big amount. It is because they have advanced their skill, traditional skills, and they make more beautiful things, more, good things in jewelry industry. That inspired me to work on this thing for, getting more advancement in Dalits' traditional skills, knowledge, and, their occupation. If we can do that thing from our Dalit community, that will certainly, save that money, and that will also, secure the livelihood of Dalit community for their betterment. That portion has been very much lacked from our movement as well, Dalits movement, from the national perspective as well. Few years back, the CTVT, Center for Technical Education and Vocational Training, they realized that some sort of Dalit skill has to be included in the course, in the curriculum of CTVT as a skill, traditional skill. So they prepared a curriculum on this jewelry type of things, and some others as well. So it has gradually coming out, but not has been gone in an aggressive way. That is the need of the day. For that, I think we my research found out that triangle type of organization to advance the Dalit community. The one thing was social mobilization that has to be done through the NGOs, civil organizations, CBOs, to empower the people, to educate the people, to organize the people, Dalit community. Second was this type of institution which can advance the traditional skill of Dalit community, so that they can come up as a commercial people rather than going into the traditional, sometimes they call it Baligari system or something like that. So that sort of institution has to be built up to commercialize their skill and knowledge. And third is, only that is not enough. They have to be backed up with the access to finance. So we established a microfinance institution, particularly focusing to Dalit community. For the social mobilization, we have several NGOs, CBOs, and so many organizations and loose forums are working on that one. For microfinance, we have established some sort of microfinance called Janothan Microfinance, but there are others as well who focus the support to finance to Dalit community. But for entrepreneurship development or skill advancement, that part has been left out from the community itself and the government as well. For that, just sharing my experience, 2 years back, we established a National Institute for Entrepreneurship Development that focused to enhance the skill of Dalit community, and the aim was to gradually graduate it into the university. But we could not do it in a better way. It has not been gone successfully. There are some, creating an institution, creating a technical institution is very expensive as well, and very hard to, because I started my career from Center for CTVT, Center for Technical Education and Vocational Training, so I have some experiences on that. However, there are some experiences, as Purna ji said, Brandeis University focused to Jewish education. There is an Ambedkar University in India, mostly focusing to Dalits, and there are some others as well for the Black people. So it is possible, but it takes much resources, and also the persons involving, motivating for this initiative. Now the law has opened that we can do it. There is a provision of deemed university, establishing a deemed university. So it is an easier way to establish the university from the community side as well. I think it has not been finalized in a national level, but province number 5 has already done it. They can, we can also start from province number 5 since they have the law, pathway. The other way we can also make it a department of the existing university, mostly focusing to the skill of Dalits in that department, running the department, especially for Dalit skills. We can also plan, think as an alternative for that as well. Or we can also think to have a separate Dalit college affiliating to the existing university. These are some options we can go on, we can move on, but still the thing is we need much resources and how to get that resources, and also how to get support from the government and other international agencies, international other universities, how to collaborate with other universities. It is the very challenging thing, but I think if we go ahead, we can get some way to start this initiative. It is a very important. It would really push the community forward, but also ambitious and challenging. So that's all for now. If there is anything, then I will share later on. Thank you very much.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Yeah, Steve, you have something to say?
I wanted to follow up on one or two of Manji's observations, because they resonated with some sort of dim thoughts that I was having of my own. And so it seems to me that a good strategy might be to start as an affiliate of an existing program, because the resource need would be far less in that regard, and then it could grow from there, and it could even suggest new models of creating a university. Universities tend to be confined to one specific place and have their own specific faculty, etc. But there are some spaces in the United States where universities come together to collaborate. So you might be able to imagine something like a Dalit university that exists as a part of several other universities. So as a part of TU, as a part of Kathmandu University, etc. Now, I don't know if that would be feasible, but I think we should put all ideas on the table at the moment. And I also wanted to mention that TU's sociology department already has carved out a Dalit studies program, I believe. And I think the anthropology department is also leans that direction, and would be very willing to entertain some kind of affiliation that would expand the Dalit footprint. And I believe that, again, going back to whether or not this is the right moment, I think it is the right moment, because clearly there are people in the social sciences in Nepal that see now the importance of getting some sort of grasp on what the Dalit condition is in a way that we've never seen before. 10 years ago, if we had talked about a Dalit university, I would have said, yes, great, but I would have not really thought that it was possible. Now I think that there is some sign that it could be possible. So I would just like to reinforce what Manji was saying, that we could look at these other ways of starting that may take a little longer, but may in the long run help to develop a stronger infrastructure. Not just one, I don't think we want this to be just one little institution someplace where Dalit kids go and Dalit kids get degrees, but we want it to have larger effects on a whole educational system. So you could imagine that there may be also smaller, say 2 year, not soon, but eventually smaller 2-year institutions that feed into a Dalit university. So if we think about it on a larger scale, we might have a better idea of where we want to start. Thanks.
Can I add something, Dr. Bishwakarma?
Maybe let's hear from Bidhyanath, sir. What do you think? Yeah. Let's hear from Bidhyanath, sir, and then of course we'll give our idea. Thank you, sir.
Since I completed my PhD from Canada back in 1996. I was thinking in this area. It's a long time and it's still moving ahead. My idea is pretty simple. I can see that I will be repeating some of these things that you said already. The first thing is that we are supposed to document all the Dalit skills, knowledge, technology, and the kind of knowledge, skill, technology, and techniques, and the principles and theories, whatever. Let's do it first. The second, we are supposed to develop the curriculum in each and every Dalit specific contents in an assertive way. Why I'm saying so? Because there are wonderful things in the Dalit skills. There are wonderful things in technology. There are wonderful things in philosophy and principles as well, and the technology as well. So there are many more things that can be learned to the non-Dalits as well. So it's not only for Dalits only. Dalits is for the country, as Dr. Mom Bishwakarma said. So I can see that the second thing is that create the theories, knowledge, skill, techniques, theories of each and every specific skills of the Dalit. The third one is find out the commonalities and the differences of all these skills. Some of the knowledges will have more or less the same. Some of them will be, some will have special technology for specific skills that they have. So that kind of thing can be done. The fourth one, I see that's kind of, as we are discussing more, we can have a kind of Dalit department in each and every university that we have. For example, I was working with this Faculty of Education. In Faculty of Education, we have the Dalit Studies. This was already there, and then this has been pushed to this Anthropology and Sociology department as well, and they have this now, this Dalit Studies. So we can push this type of thing in all the universities that we have. That can be done. And the next, we can create the college. By college, I mean the kind of 7 different colleges in 7 provinces of our country. So we can create the colleges. In the colleges, students of the Dalits and the non-Dalits will be coming there to learn the Dalit knowledge, skills, technology, and the kind of philosophies or the principles or the theory, whatever they are. So people will be coming there. It's really kind of a two-way process for the Dalits and the non-Dalits. Dalits will be getting more opportunity, and non-Dalits will be getting a quota in that point. That we can think of that way. And then federate all these universities, all the colleges into one, and then create the kind of university that will be a kind of federated university, which will have a kind of 7 different colleges working simultaneously part of the country. And for the resources, finally, for the resources, I can see that there are different ways that we can put, for example, I am working with a Muslim university these days, and then I have a kind of good response from Nepal Open University. And Nepal Open University will be working with this Muslim community and will be creating the School of Muslim Studies. And then with this Muslim Studies, will be developing gradually, will be a full-fledged Muslim university. We can name it Muslim University, or we can name it a kind of Madrasa University, or we will name it as Islamic University, or we name it as Bukhari University, or whatever. Name is not that important for us, but we are doing that. So we can think of that way. and the resources, government will put some resources, and then there are wealthy Dalits who have, as our friend said, kind of who can afford it. They can give some resources, and then we can compel to the government that following the Article 40 of the new Constitution of Nepal, you are supposed to create an opportunity to ensure that all Dalits will get a higher education opportunity. So using that article, we can pressurize the government to establish university in the end. Or we can think of differently as well. We can ask the government to start the university first, and then create colleges in different provinces, and gradually go for this documenting all these skills, knowledge, theories, or techniques of the Dalit community. So there are different ways that we can proceed on, but the question is, are we serious to do it? Because we have also started to think of Dalit college, and with CTVT, Technical Institute, we started to create that kind of opportunity. But there again, the question came about the kind of curriculum development. When we talk about the curriculum, they will be asking of 1,500,000 rupees for one curriculum. That's a huge amount for it. So can we be assertive to create as a curriculum first, and then tell to the people that, well, these are the curriculum that we have, and we can introduce, we are interested to introduce this curriculum to any of the universities of our country, and then gradually developing at the colleges, and then finally we'll have our own university. We can think of that way. This is what I am. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mom Bishwakarma.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very important ideas. Of course, there are two ways. So, Uttam Gaulee-ji, do you have any
Hello. I was talking without unmuting, so we're still learning that. Thank you. Very, very inspiring points coming from Dr. Koirala and Professor Folmer and Man Bk-Nepal also. Some of the things that you said are just cardinal. It needs no elaboration, no explanation. I just want to again reinforce the provision made in Article 40 of Nepal gives us a right, and there is a principle behind that. The principle behind opening a Dalit university, Black university here in the United States, was also that the mind can freely learn new things when you have a sense of belongingness, a sense of a community, and a feeling of security, when you do not feel inferior to others. That is a very important #1 condition for learning to happen, condition for the creativity to be foregrounded. So that is why a safe haven, as they say, needs to be created. But as all of us agreed, and Dr. Koirala also highlighted, Dalit University is a space where not only Dalits go, anyone can go, like here in the United States. In the HBCU, a lot of white people get admission. But originally, it was created as a space where they can explore their own potentials. That was the idea. So one safe haven. Again, what these kinds of institutions do is when they validate the skills, the indigenous knowledge, the technology that Dalit smart people have, it will turn the tide. People coming out of those universities with those certificates will make more money, and it will challenge people, because a certified plumber can make more money today in Nepal than a professor or other government official. That is for sure, because Nepal needs those plumbers and electricians and those physician assistants, and there are so many other jobs that do not require a 4-year rigorous curriculum, a university degree that actually has any guarantee of giving them a job. So to challenge the existing system also, I think we need to begin from the grassroots and prove that there is no job that is inferior, right? Making jewelry is now looked upon, is frowned upon. And people are going to other countries like in the Gulf, right? And doing even menial jobs where they have no job security, there is no negotiation. They're working under very difficult working conditions. So if the people can enjoy these rights of getting their skills validated within the country, I think that would be great. I'm very happy to learn that Dr. Man Bk worked in HSEB, CTVD, I think, yeah. So that is very, very important, but that has not been still accessible for everybody. The doors are not wide open for people who cannot afford to pay. CTVT gives accreditation, but it doesn't provide scholarships. It doesn't make accessible the opportunity for everybody. So the opportunity in Nepal is still a big issue. So opportunity not just in paper, but also in practice, but also in the social fabric. And I think we need to let that sink in our heart and mind. Otherwise, it will not happen. So to claim that win-win, as Professor Folmer said, we need an alliance, and we need the support of non-Dalit people who are scholars. At one point in the United States, scholars also tried to justify that slaves being slaves is good for economy and it's good for their salvation. So that kind of logic can always float, and that is also very powerful. Therefore, it is only with the small number of people who strongly push the envelope will be able to create that change, which will be beautiful win-win for our country, because we definitely need to dispel this misconception that some of the jobs are inferior. I have been in touch with higher education policymakers from developing world, including Pakistan to Egypt and Indonesia. After I wrote the book, Community College Infrastructure, Global Adaptations of Community College Infrastructure, I was invited by the Department of State to facilitate an executive dialogue on higher education, particularly for those policymakers who came to the United States to learn from the system of higher education in the United States. And my expertise happens to be in the community colleges. So community colleges are the open access universities, so to say, but these are not said to be universities. It's a system of higher education. It's kind of second layer, but it gives a second chance for people. And so are the SBCUs, but the community college again, more than 40% of high school graduates go to community colleges here in the United States. The number happens to be 12 million. So they learn the skills. They learn the knowledge and technology, and some can transfer to other universities, while many go to workforce directly with the skills, with the validation of some certifications. So I think that is very, very important for Nepal, because a large number of young people are seeking employment abroad, and I think their talent is abused. So for the dignity of Nepal's young men and women. We have to learn from this. So I warn people coming from developing countries who are in executive dialogue with me, what not to learn from the developed countries like United States. So usually what happens is hyper talented people come to developed countries like United States, and they go to very prestigious universities, and they tend not to even hear about community college, about HBCUs. And those people end up being the policymakers back home when they return. So my question, coming from Karnali region, having established a university at my hometown, when I came here with some questions, very burning questions in my mind. And I got admission in a prestigious university's higher education management program. But I pushed my envelope. What can we do? How can we develop this little university in Karnali region to become the development partner of my region? So those kinds of questions helped me to explore deeper and deeper into the social fabric. I was not seeing the young men and women burning tires on the streets in the United States. Why is that not happening here? Where are those people? Because I knew that in my 5th grade, out of the 50 people, only 15 passed. Many of them failed. Where did they go? And they became the tire burners. So I was trying to find out what is happening. Where are these people going? And has the state developed a second chance, an option for them to go and explore their skills? So that thing I found, the answer I found was in the community college systems in the United States. So I proposed that actually in the knowledge convention held by NRNA, and our Honorable Minister Rabindra Adhikari was here. He liked the idea. I had presented 2 ideas. One was establish a system of community college. You can call it polytechnics or give other names. But he really loved the idea of establishing community colleges and opening the Brain Gain Center. So those are the 2 concepts that I offered to the Nepal government. The Nepal government has graciously accepted it. They already started Brain Gain Center. And the community colleges are now being considered at state level. So when the federal level and the states encourage these institutions to compete for creating more opportunities, not how we evaluate again, how they make those industry connections and how they create employability skills and integrate their young people in the community. That's how you should measure, and that's what the policy and incentives should take care of. And he really liked the idea. I believe this is the conversation that's happening in Nepal. If not, we need to push this. And I'm very happy to share the expertise that I have, what I have learned actually from other developing countries like Egypt to Pakistan. So Pakistan's Punjab province is doing amazing job by their Ustad Shagird program, the apprenticeship program. So the Ustad Shagird program, Ustad is the mentor and Shagird is the mentee. So they transfer skills, the indigenous skills, and they are making more money. They are challenging people. So the people are now seeing attraction in why I should learn to stitch the clothes, why I should learn to stitch the shoes, a lot of those things. So I think we have to begin from there, and that is right there within our Dalit community. They have been carrying the economy on their back. They build the houses, they fix everything, they make the shoes, they stitch the clothes, they do everything, but they're not recognized. That is the situation in Nepal. So that community, which already has wealth of experience, indigenous knowledge passing from generation to generation. So I think given an opportunity, given that name recognition of Dalit University, I think will challenge the entire economic system of Nepal. Everybody will learn, that the Brahmin will learn, Kshetris will learn, Thakuris will learn, everybody will learn from the Dalits. So we have to push for a Dalit university. It makes sense. It is good for Nepal. It's good for all Nepalis. And we will be, again, dignified Nepali citizens. With diaspora will have a reason to be proud of. Dalit university is the need of the day. Thank you, Dr. Mishwakarma.
Thank you so much, Professor Uttam Gaulee-ji, for your inspiring remarks and experiences, because you have contributed to many developing countries to establish such community college. And of course, your experience will be very useful in this initiative. So now we have learned the ideas from all of us. Now the question is, how can we move ahead? So whether we start from developing curriculum, or whether we start university first, and as Professor Bidhyanath sir said, whether we start university first and college, and then collecting or documenting skill knowledge or ideas. What is our next priority? How can we move ahead? This is the question for ourselves. And I'm very excited that all these experienced dignitaries, we are in one table now, let's say, by online. And our dream will come true, of course, if we do our heart and mind together. So, yeah, of course, there are so many challenges in terms of resources and technicalities, but as you said already, that if we contribute, or yeah, we can do, or maybe we can do. Let's see, how can we go ahead? Then,
should I put my quick thoughts and after hearing? Okay, thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your ideas and thoughts. And actually, we have shared our multiple thoughts and how can we move ahead in our educational endeavors on behalf of the Dalit communities. And what I'm trying to say is that so far I understand we have intervened for empowering or inclusion of the Dalit communities through the NGOs, or very informal type of movement, or even we attempted through the government. And so far we have gained a little bit, I should say. It means it is still kind of a lot of things to do. And I think the way we are trying to do it is a kind of innovative interventions that has been practiced already in a different parts of the world. And while summarizing some of the things that it will be good learning for me as well, and some of the efforts that the different parts of the world, that the different scholars or educational reformer did through establishing the vocational institutes. And when I visited one of the institute, Fort Valley State University, this is the very small university, HBCU, that we have already shared, established via the Morrill Act. And previously, this university was started establishing the vocational institute as the different scholars, Professor Koirala and Steve Folmer and Uttam Gaulee, even Dr. Man has already shared, and we should establish some vocational institute. And it is a very if we will be able to establish the very autonomous vocational institutes, I think that will be great in our context, as Professor Koirala is mentioning, and how can we document. And actually, if we start from that way, and it as of now, it is under the CTVD. And so far, I understand CTBT is not a good institutions, and because of the lot of racist people and ideas and that sort of very institutional practices there, if if we establish that sort of the polytechnic institute or that sort of vocational institutes, I'm sure that it will be the one of the very failure example. And sooner our government of Nepal is going to establish or replace the TBT type of the institute. I think replacing the CTBT. So far, I understand. I think Professor Koirala rightly is in a position to correct me. I think if there will be the new or innovative institutions and that will contribute in a frame of the TBT, I think that that will be the very kind of the very ample opportunities to establish that sort of institute, so that it will include the people who are really engaged and who are the really scientists and who have a good knowledge, indigenous knowledge systems at the grassroots level. And I think it will be the good opportunities for the Dalit people and who are engaged and who are the Dalit entrepreneurs, and we can include in that way. My another concern is that Professor Koirala is also encouraging one of the very young scholars, Govinda Nepali, and he is very much interested to establish the Dalit Museum. That is also very one of the very good educational efforts that he has been engaged in that sort of things. Once will be established at national level or federal level or even the provincial, and Dr. Dr. Rasaili is also interested to establish at the provincial level, and that is the one area of interventions in the frame of educational efforts. I think that is also one aspect. And also we should be able to engage the very elite people and from the Dalit communities uh, or outside the Dalit community, just like a Professor Koirala and Uttam Gaulee, though they do not belong to the Dalit community, or even international community, just like Steve Folmer, and establishing kind of the universities and traditional university, educational uh, engaged, just like a teaching and learning. That is also important aspects. And also the research universities. I think research university will contribute even for establishing kind of the vocational institute. We can do research through that wing as well. And also we can do the research through establishing the museum. I think that will be the very important aspects. And as Professor Koirala has mentioned, that documenting the research and technology and philosophical aspects and principles and different technologies, and I think we can do through this research. And these are some of the various kind of the efforts or different concepts, innovative concepts that we are floating the ideas. And what I'm trying to say, what is the next? And let us document the today's meeting note. I think Dr. Mom will do, and I will also support him what I can do. And let us organize the one very kind of big webinar by kind of engaging the various scholars, just like Steve Fulmier, Gaulee and Professor Koirala, and there is even Dr. Dr. Rasaili. And how can we be engaged systematically to move ahead? How at least we can prepare the very prerequisite things to establish, just like a curriculum and different floating the ideas of establishing the vocational institute or kind of the community college or research universities or establishing the museums. And all these are the different various interventions that is in the frame of the educating the various kind of the peoples. To educate the policy peoples, definitely we need kind of the universities, and where kind of very high level or professional and personalities should be engaged. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to sensitize the very racist high level bureaucrats. And that's why multiple intervention is very much needed. And for next, we can kind of organize the one webinar so that multiple concepts that we can intervene or we can document. I think it will be the very good basis to move further. And also I'm trying to summarize, and also I am interested to listen Professor Koirala, and what are the efforts that you are doing for establishing the Muslim universities. And Professor David Seddon is very much engaged in contributing the Muslim studies. And what are the efforts that you or different scholars from the Muslim communities, definitely they might be engaged. And could you share that sort of idea? I think that will also provide us the very strong basis and how can we move ahead. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Purnaji. So now question goes to Professor Bidhyanath sir. Purnaji wants to listen from you.
No, actually, I think there is one hope, very good hope. For example, Dr. Man Bk-Nepal is in province number 5. And this province number 5 has a kind of technical university, provision of technical university right now. So if that is so, can we encourage Professor, can we encourage Dr. Man Bishwakarma to have a kind of Dalit skill section there in this kind of this province number 5 university? I don't know. One way. The second way, I can see that we are supposed to develop the material first. Why I'm saying so? Because there are many universities, or there are a number of universities, they are looking for it. But actually, we are not in a position to offer that type of thing, that these are the wonderful skills of the Dalit. These are the technologies, these are the principles, these are the theories. Because so-called university, they will be looking for that kind of things as well. Not only the skill training, but also the kind of philosophy as well. So that can be comparable with the comparable with the academic university of the West as well. So if we develop the material, then we can have another option. The option is that the list will have that courses waived. They will not be going through this course, and they will be adding another course and then get the degree as well. So there is another way that we can promote. I think we are supposed to think that way. If we develop the material first, then there's ample of the room that I can see this. I can influence personally as well to the university that where you are supposed to do it. If it is the university in the Tarai, then we can influence this Rajarshi Janak University, and then put some of the courses there, especially the courses of the Tarai Dalits. So that kind of thing can be done very easily. But the problem is that we don't have the curriculum, and we don't have the person to develop the curriculum as well. So can we think of this type of thing? I think we can be assertive enough to do that, and I'm always there to work with it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Professor Steve, do you have anything further, or can we summarize today's meeting and move ahead?
No, I don't really have anything concrete except to make the observation that we have a lot of tasks before us, and I guess we need to start prioritizing what will we do first and what will come later. My own sense is that trying to think through what the look of a Dalit educational institution would be maybe the first thing. What is it exactly we want to create? And then if we have an idea of that image, then the next step is probably to go to curriculum, because I really believe that it's going to be very hard to sell to anybody, you know, to put resources into a college that is simply a college, and without any specifics behind what it is we would want to offer and who we would want to offer it to and what sort of outcomes we would want.
Of course, of course.
I think that leads us to maybe a potential first step. If we agree on the idea, then we could maybe write a white paper
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
justifying the need, the
Yeah.
emergence of a Dalit University for Nepal.
Yeah.
And that will serve as a document for people in Nepal who are on the ground, like Dr. Man Bk, Dr. Koirala, for everybody, to start assembling an alliance that will push the envelope. It's a long process, definitely. We can definitely begin with some departments and sections. Those are good things, because we can't see beyond that happening, the entire university coming into existence in a fortnight or so. But I think we should start documenting and writing the policy briefs, and that help the leaders in Nepal. So did you say Ratubika? Who?
Ratakami from
Ratakami,
Purna
okay.
province.
So when that white paper is given to every Dalit elected official, what happens? Right? They need the ammunition. And every other people, other non-Dalits will also see the reason to establish a Dalit university. Because we haven't done that thing enough at this point. We are still justifying that Dalits are okay. Who is not letting them come to our university? We are open. Kind of narrative is still there, right? So that doesn't help. So we need to justify. We need to talk about it. So more platforms, more communication, more documentation, more justification, more data, right? We need that.
Okay, thank you, Uttam Gaulee-ji. So our first priority is to write a white paper or policy brief, whatever we call. So let's work on that. Maybe Uttam Gaulee-ji, would you like to lead that process? Then I will, of course, help you.
I'm happy to assist in any way. I think it doesn't behoove for me to be at the front lines. I think it's better for you to lead. I'm happy to provide that supportive hand.
That's okay, but at the same time, I have to write a brief note from today's meeting as well. So
yeah, I think you have recorded it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, whoever has recorded it, I think you are well positioned to start the DNA of that white paper, right? And then we can collaboratively work on it.
Okay. If that is the case, then I will write 1 or 2 pages of my idea. Then I'll share you in Google Docs. Then everybody, we can share our.
Also, if you can employ somebody or do it yourself, I mean, we already have given our ideas. For example, Dr. Koirala, Professor Folmer. So if those are documented, I think that is the beginning.
Yeah. Or Purna-ji, would you like to write 1 or 2 pages of concept paper?
I think that's a good idea. What I'm trying to say is that let us organize the one webinar focusing on the different aspects, so that mass people will also be sensitized, and during that time directly will not be presenting the paper, and we'll have a multiple perspectives. Even we can bring the people kind of who are very engaged in establishing the Muslim universities, those scholars or who is the pioneer contributor, that should be the Muslim communities. And there might be several efforts that might be doing in Nepal as well. I think Dr. Bidhyanath Koirala will inform us. And after having that kind of, it definitely, I'm sure that I'm happy to develop the 1 or 2 pages. That's not a problem. And let us begin with the very pioneering personalities. Last time we did kind of through the Professor Suresh Raj Sharma and Drona Rasali and Professor Koirala, and let us do the same, and focusing on the Dalit universities. I think it will be the great, and during that time we can present the paper, or not a kind of PowerPoint or 1 or 2 pages. I think that will be a good start. And if we start by establishing or by writing the white paper, I think it will be very time consuming, and it is a good moment to start something. build on our efforts by presenting
No.
through the webinar. I
What
think
what Punaji, what we are thinking is like we should write 1 or 2 pages of concept paper, not like white paper or policy paper
mm,
now. It's just 1 or 2 pages of concept paper. What is the scope and why it is needed, and what are the resources or what are the area we want to focus on, something like that. 1 or 2 pages of concept paper, and then that will be very good document. That will be that will be very important document to present in webinar if we organize one. But before webinar, we should have basic document.
yeah,
In our time.
definitely we can do. Let's develop the 1 or 2 pages and what
Yeah.
are the basis and why we are going to start and why Dalit University. Definitely we can do. Uttam ji and you and me can develop, and
Yeah.
we'll request for the valuable input from the Professor Koirala and Steve Folmer, even Dr. Donor Saili. I think
Yeah.
that will be a good basis. Even we can circulate that one and before a conference or webinar as well.
Yeah.
And
Can we write within a week then?
uh,
Because I have said that Dr. Donor will join in our next meeting that will be organized in a week or two. I said that. So is it possible to develop within a week?
yes, sure. We can do. Let's develop it jointly.
Okay. No worries.
It's not a big deal.
What do you say, Professor Bidhyanath sir and Steve Folmer? Is it possible to organize another meeting in a week?
We
not?
can take time as well.
Yeah.
If
But I do
for
believe
me,
that
it depends a little bit. Oh,
many more things. So I expect that Dr. Purna Nepali will be having a kind of all these details that has been done in the West, and then try to see the linkages of what we discussed now. Then that will be a good way to have a kind of blend of the West and the East together. Indigeneity versus modernity, not the versus, but indigeneity and this kind of modernity together.
sure.
So can I request Dr. Purna Nepali to develop a 4, 5, 6 pages stuff? Maybe you can take 3 weeks, show that more on it, and we can incorporate our ideas as well.
Sure. I'll do. And
Okay.
actually, we 3 people will develop the young people, just very young. Dr. Mom, definitely I will start 2, 3 pager or even 5 pager. I will develop, and I'm also expecting some refinement or different, very brilliant idea from Dr. Gaulee and Dr. Mom. And definitely I will initiate. That is not a problem for me. And actually, I would like to contribute it. It is a good opportunity for me.
You got it, sir.
And
You got it.
sure.
We already have. Just transcribe this meeting, and that's the white paper. We already have.
That's also good. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And then our next, the main priority or outcome from this meeting is to develop 5 or 6 pager of concept paper, let's say. That's the outcome from today's meeting, and we all agreed that there is need of having some sort of institution, whether it is college or university or polytechnic or community college. So we can decide later, and we can also think of policy and other procedures. What could be, act or what are the resources? We can of course think of these later, but the idea of briefing paper or let's say concept paper is the main outcome from today's meeting. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution, and I'm very excited to join you, collaborate you, and of course assist you all, because I'm the youngest, I think, in terms of my career path. and
And Momji, could you develop the one of just few notes of this meeting?
okay, no problem. Yeah, I can work
Okay,
on that.
I think that will be a good basis from where we have started, and that will be a good documentation as well.
Yeah. And as Dr. Man and everyone saying that this is ambitious idea, of course, this is ambitious, and sometimes we need to think big and to get something. So I'm very excited to get support from you all. And of course, it is not only my work, it is all of us work, and it will ultimately benefit the society in Nepal and let's say in South Asia that will be replicated. Or I don't know, maybe it's already happening in other parts of the South Asia. But it will be a great moment for us if it happens. Okay, thank you so much.
One of the incident I would like to mention when I returned from the US, and during that time I was floating or sharing some of my ideas with Dr Mom Bishwakarma, and there is some opportunities for establishing a Dalit University. During that time, he was refusing. It is not possible. Establishing Dalit University, it is quite. It is not. It is totally impossible. That idea.
Okay.
And actually, I tried to convince, but he was refusing. But later on, and actually gradually he started taking some ideas, and right now he's kind of sharing his ideas. There is some possibility for establishing universities, and by taking some of the references from the Bidhyanath Koirala, Suresh Raj Sharma, and even Kedar Bhakta Mathema, and actually once we'll be able to kind of the sensitize the mass, even the Dalit scholars or kind of the policy makers who are well engaged at the ministry level or policy maker level, and definitely we can ensure some of the things. If we'll not be able to establish the Dalit universities very soon, at least there is some possibilities of establishing kind of diversity and inclusion unit at the universities level, immediately under the supervision of the vice chancellor or the president, and there is some chances. And even at the Gandaki universities, kind of they are establishing the universities, and if we'll be able to convince them, and definitely we can kind of start some department or some center. I think that will be also the good achievements. Let us start something. I think that is the good idea. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Purnaji, again for your great ideas. Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities, and of course, if we get support from everyone like Professor Bidhyanath Koirala, Steve Folmer, and we can add more on later as per need, because there are so many national and international scholars. They could be interested to support us. I'm very hopeful and excited as well. Is there any last minute ideas or comments to put up? Okay, thank you.
This is a great day. This university will come to existence because we have Bidhyanath Koirala sir with us.
Yeah.
I will
That's
also
what I
add.
said.
I will also add one more thing that's pretty simple. Because 3 years back, I was writing the policy document. In that policy document, I have mentioned that these are the skills, and they are supposed to be documented, and they are supposed to be developed, the curriculum, and the government should pay money for this curriculum developers, and this should be free, and ultimately it should be Dalit University. That's what I wrote, but I couldn't pursue the next commission that has been put in the cells of Prime Minister. I couldn't persuade them. That's the kind of problem. And though, as Dr. Purna Nepali said, Dr Mom Bishwakarma and myself, we were there to argue, and yet we couldn't persuade them. So this is a position of our country. So we are supposed to have a kind of experiences and also the provisions that has been already there. We are supposed to mention it. And finally, I would say that Dr. Drone Rasali has a kind of wonderful experience of writing white paper to the Open University of Nepal. So he be helpful for us to write this kind of white paper for Dalit University.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I had already discussion with him, and he is very excited to support in this process as well. So, of course, from next meeting onwards, he will join us. Today, he was not able because there was Canada Day, and he's going somewhere. Yeah.
He has collected a lot of information.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
Dalit Info portal.
Yeah.
A lot of data.
Okay. So we are enough today meeting. Thank you everyone for your time and contribution. And let's see in few weeks time. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank
All
you
right,
for
see you.
organizing this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.